Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar did not expect this. Not this fast. Not this direct. Not this bold. Because while he was moving quietly with his northern agenda, Peter Obi made a sudden political move that shocked Abuja. A private meeting. A new alliance. And a fresh crisis that has now thrown the entire 2027 race into a new direction. Today, we break down the moment Peter Obi met with Nasir El-Rufai. Why the ADC zoning crisis pushed the meeting. And why Tinubu and the APC are now watching every step with fear and confusion. Atiku believed he had time. He believed the North would rotate around him once again. He believed his influence was still solid. But politics is no longer the same. Nigeria is no longer the same. Atiku's plan was simple. Control the northern delegates. Secure the political blocs. Force a wide coalition around himself before the campaigns begin. But the political ground he thought was stable was already shifting under his feet, and he did not notice early enough. For years, Atiku relied on the same networks, the same elders, the same regional loyalists who supported him in the past. He believed their loyalty could not be broken. He believed the North would always wait for him whenever he was ready to move. That confidence became his weakness. What Atiku did not see was that the political environment had changed since 2023. Younger northern voters had become louder. Civil groups were rising. Political conversations were different. The old style of politics no longer had the same strength. People wanted something fresh, something stable, and something that could bring real direction. The old alliances Atiku depended on were slowly becoming weak. Still, Atiku pushed forward. He held private meetings. He spoke with northern leaders. He revived his networks. He believed the region would close around him again. But the moment the ADC zoning crisis started, everything he built began to shake. The ADC crisis was supposed to be small. A minor disagreement. A normal political argument inside a party that was not even the center of national politics. But politics is unpredictable. A small spark can burn through an entire forest. And that was exactly what happened. The fight over zoning in the ADC created a vacuum, an opening that no one expected. It exposed northern divisions. It exposed frustration. It exposed the quiet struggle happening behind the scenes. Instead of being a small matter, it became a loud signal that the northern political field was not as united as Atiku believed. He needed the North calm. He needed it steady. He needed it ready to rotate back to him. But instead, he watched the region break into new camps he could not control. And then, something worse happened. While Atiku was trying to gather his strength, Peter Obi made a quiet move that changed everything. Obi met with Nasir El-Rufai. The meeting was real. The timing was sharp. The message was loud. This meeting was the turning point. Obi did not wait for the ADC crisis to settle. He stepped into it. He took advantage of the confusion. He spoke with El-Rufai, a man who understands northern politics more deeply than most politicians in the country. El-Rufai is not lightweight. He is not someone whose influence can be ignored. His network stretches across political and religious lines. His voice reaches groups Atiku once relied on. So when Obi sat down with El-Rufai, it sent shockwaves through the North. It signaled a new direction. It signaled a possible alliance. It signaled that Atiku's long plan was under threat. The North began to pay attention. Younger leaders started asking if there was a new alternative. Elders who were previously silent started watching more closely. Political groups that were stuck in the middle saw a fresh path. Atiku's team knew this was trouble. They knew the timing was too perfect. They knew Obi had entered the northern conversation in a way that was impossible to ignore. The ADC zoning crisis created the doorway. Peter Obi walked through it. And El-Rufai opened the door wider. Atiku felt the pressure immediately. The northern project he believed would return to him was no longer only his. His influence was no longer automatic. The North he thought he controlled was now listening to another voice. Obi did not shout. He did not announce anything. He simply made one strategic move, and the entire structure of Atiku's northern agenda began to shake. Because the truth is simple. The North respects strategy. And Obi just proved he could play strategy at a high level. The same northern blocs Atiku expected to rally around him were suddenly split. Some were curious about Obi's visit. Some were impressed by the bravery of meeting El-Rufai. Others were shocked that Obi would step into the northern space at such a sensitive moment. But the biggest issue was that many people began to rethink Atiku's position. For years, Atiku was the one who reached out to northern power players. But now, Obi was the one doing it, quietly, boldly, and at the perfect moment. The northern agenda Atiku spent years building did not collapse overnight. But it began to fail the day Obi walked into that meeting room. And El-Rufai was waiting. Peter Obi is not loud. He is not aggressive. But when he moves, the political ground shifts. When news leaked that Obi met with former Kaduna Governor Nasir El-Rufai, many people thought it was a rumor. Then it was confirmed. And when it was confirmed, panic entered several camps. Because in Nigerian politics, timing is everything. And Obi's timing was perfect. Why El-Rufai? Why now? Why in the middle of the ADC zoning war? Those were the questions that exploded across political groups, WhatsApp circles, party meetings, and late-night strategy rooms. Everyone wanted to understand the logic behind the meeting. Everyone wanted to decode Obi's intention. But one thing was clear, this was not a casual visit. It was a targeted political strike. El-Rufai is not a regular politician. He is sharp. He is strategic. He is outspoken. He has strong influence across northern networks. Even his critics admit that he understands the political map of the North better than most people. For Obi to visit him during a tense moment meant there was something bigger happening underneath. Inside PDP, the reaction was immediate. Atiku's team felt the impact like a punch. They knew what El-Rufai represented. They knew how much weight he carried in the North. And they knew that his meeting with Obi could shift northern loyalties in a dangerous direction. Some northern PDP leaders became restless. Some started making private calls. Some began to question whether Atiku still had the power to keep the North united. Because the truth was simple, El-Rufai's presence in any political equation changes everything. Meanwhile, ADC members were caught in their own storm. The zoning crisis had already weakened the party from inside. Accusations were flying. Regions were arguing. Groups were pulling in different directions. And while they were distracted with internal fights, Obi used that moment to reposition himself. He stepped into the northern conversation without warning. What made the situation more shocking was how calm Obi remained. No interviews. No loud celebration. No attempt to show off the meeting. The silence was what made it even more powerful. APC insiders watched this with unease. Because for them, El-Rufai was once a key pillar inside the party. He was a force during the 2015 political wave. He was a major strategist during the early years of the APC. Even after disagreements, many still respected his judgment. So when Obi met him, Tinubu's camp became worried. Not because of the handshake. Not because of the photos. But because of the possibility that El-Rufai could open the North to Obi in ways the ruling party did not expect. A single meeting created confusion in both APC and PDP at the same time. That is not common. That is not normal. That only happens when something serious is developing. People inside Tinubu's circle started asking hard questions. Is El-Rufai trying to build a new alliance? Is he preparing for a bigger move? Is this the start of a coalition that could threaten APC in 2027? Why would Obi choose him out of all northern leaders? The fear was not because Obi met someone. It was because Obi met the right someone. And Obi met him at the perfect moment. The ADC zoning crisis created uncertainty. Uncertainty created opportunity. Obi walked into the opportunity with precision. And El-Rufai, whether for political strategy or personal interest, opened his door. The meeting lasted longer than expected. Discussions were deep. Both men understood the importance of the moment. For Obi, it was a message that he was ready to build alliances beyond his comfort zone. For El-Rufai, it was a chance to re-enter national politics from a new position. By the time the meeting ended, Abuja was already vibrating with tension. Northern commentators began to speculate. Southern political groups began to analyze the implications. Even non-political citizens started talking. Because this was not about friendship. This was not about courtesy. This was about power. A new political bridge had been built. Atiku's camp saw it as a threat. Tinubu's camp saw it as a warning. The ADC saw it as a distraction from their crisis. But Obi saw it as strategy. And the truth remained. Obi had achieved something many politicians struggled to achieve. He made the North look at him again. Not as a visitor. Not as a candidate from the outside. But as someone who understood that true power in Nigerian politics comes from reaching across all regions. This single meeting changed the rhythm of the 2027 race. It forced everyone to recalculate their plans. It forced analysts to rewrite their predictions. It forced parties to rethink their alliances. Because whether people support El-Rufai or not, his influence cannot be erased. And once he opens a space, that space becomes politically important. Obi stepped into that space with calmness. El-Rufai welcomed him with seriousness. And Nigerian politics has been different ever since. Atiku felt the shock first. Because if El-Rufai, a northern heavyweight, is speaking with Obi during a zoning crisis, it means the northern political map is changing. It means the influence Atiku once held cannot be trusted. It means new alliances are forming without him. For years, Atiku saw himself as the strongest link between northern power structures and national politics. He believed he could shape the direction of the region whenever he wanted. But the moment Obi and El-Rufai met, something shifted. The northern field, which he expected to control, suddenly became open again. And an open field is dangerous for someone who relies on old loyalty. The first signs of trouble came from the northern political blocs. Some leaders who were once silent started asking new questions. They wanted to know what Obi discussed with El-Rufai. They wanted to know why the meeting happened at such a sensitive time. They wanted to know whether the North should consider a fresh partnership. Atiku's team tried to calm the situation. They tried to convince their allies that the meeting meant nothing. But nobody believed that. They knew El-Rufai does not entertain meaningless visits. They knew Obi does not move without purpose. They knew this was not an accident. The real fear was not the meeting itself. The real fear was the possibility that Obi might be building a bridge into the north, one that Atiku cannot break. Meanwhile, inside APC, the reaction was different but equally intense. Tinubu's camp did not take the meeting lightly. They understood the weight of the moment. They understood that if El-Rufai opens northern doors for Obi, the 2027 race becomes far more complicated. Tinubu is a strategist, and he knows when danger is coming. This move from Obi was silent but powerful. It was the kind of political move that removes comfort from the ruling party. Advisors inside the APC began to study the implications. Could El-Rufai influence northern youth? Could he shape public opinion? Could he help Obi build a northern coalition strong enough to challenge the ruling party? They did not have the answers. And not having answers created fear. For the first time since the last election, both PDP and APC felt the same pressure. Obi was not the same politician they faced in 2023. He was different. He was sharper. He was moving with calculation. The shockwave across Nigerian politics grew stronger when analysts began to break down the potential outcomes. Some believed Obi and El-Rufai could form a new political bloc. Others believed the meeting could attract northern elders who were already tired of the old political order. And many believe the North could shift in a surprising direction if Obi continues strategic engagements quietly. The ADC, still struggling with its zoning crisis, found itself trapped in the middle of a national conversation. Their internal problems now looked like opportunities for other politicians. Obi used the vacuum wisely. El-Rufai used it to regain relevance. And the ADC watched as its zoning conflict turned into a national earthquake. The more people discussed the meeting, the more powerful it became. Northern activists began to say that Obi's willingness to meet El-Rufai showed maturity. Southern groups said it showed courage. Political observers said it showed intelligence. But Atiku's camp said it showed danger. Because Atiku understood something very clearly: once Northern voters start looking at another candidate with serious interest, the road back becomes very difficult. Tinubu's camp also felt the same concern. Even if they believed they were strong in the North, they knew that political alliances can shift quickly. A single misunderstanding, a single crisis, or a single strong coalition can break a ruling party's grip. This is why the Obi El-Rufai meeting created a shockwave. It introduced uncertainty. Uncertainty is the enemy of politicians who depend on stability. For Obi, the effect was immediate. People began to see him as a man who could step beyond his base. They saw him as someone who could stretch across lines. They saw him as someone who was thinking ahead. Obi did not shout. He did not mock anyone. He did not brag. He simply took one step, and that step changed the conversation in every major political camp. The question that began to spread across Nigeria was simple. Is Obi building something bigger than we expected? And that question is what made politicians uncomfortable. Because if Obi continues to build alliances quietly, if he continues to repair old tensions, if he continues to enter the North strategically, then the old order of Nigerian politics will not remain the same. Atiku's plan now faces a strong challenger. Tinubu's confidence now faces a new calculation. The ADC's crisis now has national consequences. All of this began from one meeting. One conversation. One strategic moment. If the story continues on this path, Nigeria may witness a political shift more dramatic than anyone expected. And it all started the moment Peter Obi walked into a room. And Nasir El-Rufai was waiting.